Hey Algebra 2, today we're going to talk about Chapter 7.5, which is graphing square roots and cube root functions. So here is what would be called your parent graphs for square root and cube root. They're the basic graph. We are going to shift these around so that these are where they start. When you graph these, about two things you need to know. First of all is the basic shape. And the second thing is a couple of key points. Now, one way to graph these would be to completely make a table and then plot your points and sketch it in. But if you know these key points, then you can just plot them and draw in the rest of the curve. So for a square root, the key points, they're the ones that are drawn in here. So the square root of 0 is 0, the square root of 1 is 1. So those two are key points. If I plot those, I can just draw in the rest of the curve then. Okay. And for a cube root, we're going to have 3 points. The cube root of 0 is 0, the cube root of 1 is 1, and the cube root of -1 is -1. So if you draw in those 3 points, then you can kind of draw that curve and then this other curve. One thing to notice is the difference in domains and ranges. Domain for a square root is greater than or equal to 0, and the range is greater than or equal to 0 because you can only put positive numbers under a square root, and they're only going to give you positive numbers out of it. For a cube root, though, you can put any number underneath, so the domain is all real numbers, and then the range is also all real numbers. So like I said, we're going to start the parent graphs, and we're going to shift them using h and k, just like we shifted absolute value functions and quadratics. So the h is with the x, and it's going to shift it left and right, and that's the one that shifts it opposite of what you think it should be. So if it says minus h, it actually shifts to the right, and then a plus h would shift to the left. And at the end is plus k, so plus k would shift up, and minus k would shift down. And then we can also stretch or compress, which is going to be your a out front, and I'll show you some examples with both of those. So first of all, here we want to describe how the graph is going to change, and then we're going to graph it. So this -2 with the x is going to shift it right 2, and then +1 at the end is going to shift up 1. So that's how it's going to change. So here's my suggestion. I would suggest originally sketching your key points. I'm going to make our graph a little bigger here. So for a cube root, 0, 0, 1, 1, -1, -1, those are my key points. But then I'm going to take them and I'm going to shift them. So I'm not going to draw in my curve yet. I'm going to shift all of these points right 2, up 1. So this upper right point goes right 2, up 1. It's going to become up here. Then right 2, up 1, that's for the middle point. And right 2, up 1, that's for the third point. And then I'm going to draw in my curve. I'm going to start there and come up, and go back to the middle and come down. Okay, so start with your key points for the parent graph, do your shifting, and then draw them in. Okay, let's look at that again. This time it's a square root, but our shifts are going to be similar. So a -3 with the x moves it right 3, and then a +2 at the end. It's going to be up 2. Those are going to be my movements. Okay, so I'm going to start with my parent graph. So there's my parent graph. And each one of those I'm going to shift right 3. So I'm going to start with the upper right one, right 3, and up 2. It's going to become there. Then right 3 and up 2. Okay, and I know you can't see me moving the stylus around, but right 3, up 2. From this one, right 3, up 2. And I get those, and then I just draw that in. Notice I didn't start the origin still. There's nothing past this point because that's where it starts. And we'll talk about the domains later. So its domain has been shifted also. And our last one we're going to talk about is what happens if we have this a out front. Okay. Well, so first of all, let's start with our parent graph. So it is a cube root. So a cube root, I'm going to start with these 3 points, and then I'm going to shift them right 3, up 2. So do your shifting first. So each one of these is going to go right 3 and up 2. So we go there, and they keep that same shape. So there they are. Okay, but then I'm going to multiply each one of them by a -2. So this -2 is going to do two things. The negative is going to flip it or reflect it, like a parabola would open up, then it opened down. And so for our cube root, it's going to look like this instead. And then the 2 is going to stretch it and make it like taller and skinnier. So if I take 3, this right now is 3, you're looking at your y value. If I take 3 times -2, I'm going to get to -6. So I'm going to come down here to -6, and I'm going to plot it. The x stays the same. Then I'm going to take the next one here, which is at 2 times -2, so it's going to be at -4. So notice they're not just kind of one apart. And then 1 times -2 is going to be -2. So it has stretched it. So now we're going to come this way and this way. All right, we will talk about this more in class. Definitely know your key points to both the square root and the cube root. And you should already know how to shift them left and right, up and down, but you might make sure that you know how to do this multiplying by the a value as well. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you in class.